3 tablespoons of a high medicinal olive oil is the equivalent to 200 milligrams of ibuprofen. We work with some of the greatest professors in the world that test 30,000 samples a year, right? That's how I truly know that what we're working with is the only scientifically proven wild olive oil in the world. That's got a medicinal polyphenol content of 1,000 milligrams per kilogram. So it's about 5 times the average of Australian olive oil.
Evan, thank you for coming into the studio today. I'm really excited for this conversation.
As am I, yep.
Yeah, it's been a little while coming. We did discover a couple of weeks ago we had a common theme. I'm from Mildura.
Yep.
Your wife's from Mildura.
My wife's from Mildura, yep.
Say no more. We've already besties.
I love Mildura. I love it. It's
Mildura is a lovely...
my getaway place.
There you go. Yep. It's a lovely place to visit.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Growing up there, it was very isolating.
Yeah, look, my in-laws are still there and my wife's sister's there.
Yeah.
They've got a large family. They've got 4 kids now. So we go there, break away from Melbourne and just get into the nice, continuous, nice sunny weather.
So nice.
They're hitting like 44 4 days in a row this week.
A different heat though. Different heat.
Yeah, it's a dry heat.
Yeah, it's dry.
It's not like
I think I'm traumatised because anyone that knows Mildura or the Murray River, I always got told that Apex Park, which is like the local sandbar, I got told that the sandbar was the beach. So as a kid, my mum would say, do you want to go to the beach? And that's what I thought the beach was.
Yep. Okay.
Can you understand why I'm traumatised?
Yeah. Well, it is the beach there.
It's a very ugly beach.
Actually, funny you say that because the last plane ride over, I said to the wife, if it had a beach here, I'd move here. And she said, there is a beach, Apex Park. I said, that.
See, we all got traumatised. We all got told that was the beach. Anyway, we're not here to speak. It's not. Anyway. We're not here to talk about Mildura, a lovely part of the world, very isolated. But I really want to discover before we start to talk about the wild olive, which is your brand, and I'm very excited that we've got this opportunity and people need to hear the information we've got to talk about today. So I'm going to just say it straight out of the gate, stick around to the end because we've got some truth bombs. But who is Evan?
Well, that's a... How much
what is your background?
How much time have we got?
Have you always had the wild olive or what did you do before that?
No, look, so 15 years ago I was a banker.
Really? Yeah. See, this is why we asked this question.
Yeah. I was a banker at the Commonwealth Bank and I just knew after about 4 years that it was something that could become quite lucrative, but money's never been my driving factor, and people say that a lot, but I know people that have got a lot of money and they're unhappy.
Right.
And we hear that a lot. I guess after that I always knew, I remember sitting down with my area manager at the time and saying, mate, this isn't for me. I want to do my own thing. I've got drive. And at the same time I was a semi-professional footballer, soccer player, whatever you want to call it. And I failed that. I was a talented kid and just never saw myself or didn't want to commit to taking the next steps that were required to become a footballer, leaving the family, going overseas, so on and so forth. So I knew I had this burn in my belly to do something. And I didn't know what it was at the time, and I guess it was a sort of confusing period, but I had a best friend of mine that we had talked about opening a cafe and doing cafes. I had met my girlfriend at the time, Pinar, who's now my wife. We've got 2 beautiful kids together. And we were on the verge of opening a hair salon in Carlton where everyone knew her in Carlton as a great hairdresser. And she then had a very traumatic car accident, so that got put on hold. So I stayed in the bank, and she was actually the one to push me to take the next steps, which was I was good at health and fitness because of my football background, and F45 was starting to hit the map. So with another family member, I opened up the 5th F45 in Victoria.
Wow.
We knew nothing about the business. F45 it's another story.
Right.
And we went in there with 5 members. So we were in the red.
Cool.
And we ended up expanding to 3 licenses. And I was in that game and just got out actually about 6 months ago for almost 10 years. 3 years ago, I went to Greece for a family holiday, and it was actually the last conversation I had before I got back on a plane to come to Melbourne, where my late father's boyhood friend asked me if I had heard of wild olives. Now, we've got olive groves in the family, but they're cultivated normal trees, hundreds of years in the family. And, of course, I knew about olive oil. I knew nothing about wild olive oil.
Right.
And I think at the time no one actually did.
Right. I mean, I think most people, especially most ethnics, know about olive oil.
Of course, yeah.
Greek,
yeah.
Italian,
Yeah,
Spanish.
Southern Europeans, yeah.
If anyone said, what do you know about olive oil? You're like, well, you cook with it and apparently it's healthy.
Yeah, yeah.
That's most people's knowledge, right?
Well, at the time when I started this, people were saying that it was actually unhealthy to cook with.
Right, yeah, that's true. You shouldn't cook with it.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah.
So that was the last conversation you had before you left?
Yeah, and I said to him, I haven't. I didn't know they existed, and, we won't go into the Greek slang terminology, which I'm sure you're well aware of. And he said to me, in a nutshell, of course they exist. I'll send you some stuff, have a look, do some research because you're in the space, and come back to me. And at the time, he was only sort of prepared to discuss Australia with me because he was in some other conversations, which I can't mention names, with some American people that wanted to buy the entire rights to the whole world. And I went and did some research, got back to him and said, I'm in. Like, there's no way I can... Was always looking for a connection with Greece outside of what already existed. So politics, religion, not that I'm not involved with that stuff, but I'm not involved to the extent, the old people were involved with it in. So this was sort of that coming, I guess, that, I was waiting for this opportunity where it all sort of tied in. It's pretty hard to believe that these trees self-pollinate in the mountains in Greece. And at the start I thought, no, this guy's having me on. He's
so
planted these trees.
So they self-pollinate, and I'm assuming they're in the water table. They're fully, yeah?
They don't get watered.
That's right, so they're in the table.
Yeah, so they grow. It's pretty phenomenal. And, I mean, if people go to the Instagram, and you've obviously seen it, they almost look like a crimson or a skeleton of an olive tree, right? It might be that, the best example I can give is a bird eats an olive from a cultivated tree, and birds fly naturally to the top of the mountains. They don't eat the pip, they drop it, and it grows. And, people say, well, how can it grow? Well, Greece is, for me, is a heaven. And they've got the best weather, the best food.
Yeah, you never have a bad meal in Greece.
It's just...
You never have a bad meal.
Greece is just a heaven, right? So...
Don't tell everyone.
Everyone knows.
Everyone knows.
I might be biased, but everyone knows. But I guess it's... You then realise how these things grow, because if the same thing happened here down in Oz, they won't grow.
Right.
They won't grow. There's no wild olive trees in Australia. In actual fact, there's no wild olive trees in the rest of the world. And we'll talk about
anywhere else?
No. And I get people that ring me all the time, I've got wild olives. Okay, send me a sample.
There you go.
I'm even happy to pay for the sample.
Right. But it doesn't even matter because it's also regional. So you can't take even from the properties, and we're going to talk, we're going to go in every direction here.
Yeah.
But I'm a herbalist. From understanding where something grows regionally, you take that and you put it somewhere else, the properties change because it's 100%. Not the same environment.
Yeah,
so you're never going to get.
Yep.
But that's self-sufficient.
Yep. Yeah, of course. They are. We don't I get questions all the time. Do you water? What do you fertilise with? The message has taken a good 4 years to hurdle, and it's all we do is hand pick the olives. They get put in the old school Hessian sacks. They go straight to the factory, and the whole olive pippinal goes into a pressing system like normal olives
like
use. We use a separate olive mill, obviously, and out comes this truly liquid gold. It's a medicine.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you had this opportunity, you came home, you were probably maybe excited. Was it almost this was always going to be this
honest,
way
I
moment?
thought it was all fluff at the
Really?
time. I thought, these Greeks, they... How can this be? And
well, it sounds too good to be true.
why isn't he selling it and making all this money and all this type of stuff? And now, looking back, we call Greece a heaven.
Yeah.
Greece has an abundance of natural products that are unmatched.
Yeah, and untouched.
From olive oil, from honey, from milks, from teas. They just don't do much about it.
Right.
The younger generation's changed. There's incentives to work hard now in Greece. They don't like change, the Greeks.
So for the person listening that's going, okay, I hear this, this vineyard or whatever we call it, orchard.
Yep.
It's self-cultivating, it's self-sufficient, it's self-watering, it's in its natural, very habitat. What is the benefit, other than the fact that it's self-sufficient and it's in its natural environment?
Yep.
What does that translate to when we're talking about the
Olive
actual
oil.
product itself and olive oil?
Okay, so the word polyphenols is starting to be talked about.
Thrown around everywhere now.
We've started talking about it more in Australia now, and for the simple facts that that's just the way olive oil's gone. Right. So I'll take you back probably 60 years ago when my grandparents came out, and we were in a suburb in Richmond. To find olive oil, they had to go to a chemist and buy 500 mils. It was before the time of, we had a grove and whoever's looking after it will ship us out the drums, and we all know the story. All Greek, every Greek in Australia has that. And that speaks volumes, that olive oil was so rare and medicinal that they had to go and buy 500 mils.
From the chemist.
I remember my grandfather telling me this story, and he said to me, I slick my hair with his stuff. What's 500 mils going to get me? And he lived till 93.
Wow.
Right? So going from that to what olive oil became, this commercialised, high volume, not medicinal whatsoever, not great tasting, all over the world.
Big business though.
Yeah, that's right.
Big business.
Not just in Australia, everywhere in the world, to then doing a full 360 back to 50, 60 years ago, where people are now saying it needs to be recognised for what it is.
Right.
I'll self-proclaim that I think I was the first one talking about polyphenols in Australia. People might call my bluff, but I don't think so.
So for those that don't know, what are polyphenols?
So polyphenols are the molecules within olive oil that give the medicinal reading. And within that, and we'll talk about it more, the major marker is oleocanthal, right? So your average Australian extra virgin olive oil, and I'm not going to mention names of brands.
No, you don't need to. That's fine.
The reading goes anywhere from 200 milligrams to, I think the highest I've seen is 500 milligrams per kilogram.
And the higher the better.
The higher the better. But we've got to be careful, because there's people out there, for example, there's a farm in Cyprus who specifically, and not just Cyprus, all over the world, they want to proclaim themselves as the highest polyphenol content. So they do everything possible, humanly possible, to get that reading.
Does that
and they've got it.
involve...
Look, I've seen 5,000 milligrams per kilogram.
Does it involve it's not altering it, it's just the processing?
It's about the farming, the processing, engineering.
You can't drink it.
You can't drink it. It's like taking a shot of whiskey or petrol, or you can't drink it. But testament to them, they only want that reading.
Right.
It's not about the mass volume or all that sort of stuff. Our wild olive oil reads at 2,000 plus milligrams per kilogram, pending the season. Right. So this year I think we read at about 1,800. Last year we read at about 2,100 milligrams per kilogram.
And does it just depend on the crop and the year?
Well, with us it's God sent. We can't control that.
Right.
So everyone else can. We might be able to cultivate a little bit earlier because wild olives are cultivated very unripe and very small. If you see a wild olive, like the tree, it's about a third of the size of a normal, or even a quarter of the size of a normal olive. But it's out of our hands. So if we cultivate a little bit earlier, we then got to find that balance of, is it going to be too bitter?
Right.
So this year we cultivated a little bit earlier. We got a similar reading. I like the taste because I love true, pure olive oil, but I often get, hey, it's a little bit strong. How can I... sort of like when Manuka honey tastes different to honey. It's because of the medicinal polyphenols, the content.
And for those that are listening that don't really understand, it's the higher the reading, generally, correct me if I'm wrong, the more of a sensation. It's quite peppery.
Yeah. So there's this common misconception that if it makes you do that it's rancid. I'm here to dispel
rancid smells different.
Yeah, I'm here to dispel a few myths. So I've got olive oil at home from my groves that is 6 years old. and it's not rancid.
Right. You can smell rancid.
I haven't come across an olive oil in my time, ever since I was a kid, that has actually gone off. We've got certain laws in Australia.
I did message you about this actually because I found a bottle on my desk at work and I had a patient and she's like, I've got a bottle in the cupboard and it's 1.5 years old. And I said, oh, well, let me just text Evan. But also my bottle sitting here is 2.5 years old.
It does not go
and
off.
it didn't smell any different.
We've got to put best before on that because it is best before because slowly and gradually the polyphenol content in oleocanthal decreases. But when you're starting at such a high level, it's still going to be better after 2 or 3 years than what you're going to find on a supermarket shelf.
And so what are some of the things that we would want, or we know the benefits are medicinal, but what are the sort of things are we talking about that it actually then treats or helps to treat? I
don't want to make any claims.
No.
I'm not here to make claims.
In general sense though.
Yeah. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm on this journey to replace Nurofen or anything like that because I'm not.
Of course.
So we work with some of the greatest professors in the world that test 30,000 samples a year, right? That's how I truly know that what we're working with is the only scientifically proven wild olive oil in the world. And that's the other thing to mention. So our oils, even our white bottle, so our early harvest, which does come from cultivated trees, that's got a medicinal polyphenol content of 1,000 milligrams per kilogram. 1,000 to 1,200.
Okay, so that's still high.
Very high. So it's about 5 times the average of Australian olive oil. And that tastes ripper. Yeah, so that, you wouldn't even think that that's, you'd think because it's olive oil from Greece that it's got medicinal benefits, but tasting it, it's so flowery because of the variety it comes from, you wouldn't think, oh, okay, this has got so much more medicinal benefit than, say, I don't know, a cobra mistake. Right? Or Grampians. Per se. There has been tests and analysis and real-life tests on humans. We're not talking about insects or mice or real humans with real issues, cancer, prostate, thyroid, and the list goes on, where it's what olive oil is being known to do is it mops up your free radical bad cells. But it doesn't affect the good cells, which is the perfect medicine for inflammation, for everything. And we know that inflammation is the beginning cause of every disease. Having 20 mils a day, now I probably have 750 mils a day. That's
okay. You practice what you preach. We love that.
Well, we get baptised with it.
Yeah, there you go. So you do.
It keeps the devil away, they say. So it's not only about those, well, I guess minimising that bad stuff is only going to help in everything in a general sense. So they've tested
and there's no dangers either. I think that we're talking about food as medicine. So I think that's 100%. Really important to...
Well, you eat it.
Absolutely. But it's very interesting how the minute we start to talk about food as medicine, people start to fear something interacting with something else or having a negative effect. And I'm like...
Yeah, well, I guess what people don't realise is that, and Southern Europeans and especially the east coast of Australia, I guess I can say this because I am a wog. If you're a wog, the main ingredient in the Mediterranean diet is olive oil. Now, can we live the Mediterranean diet like they do in places in blue zones like Icaria or Sardinia we spoke about before? I think there's a lot more that goes into their lifestyle than just the diet. And we can't live that life in Australia.
No, we can't.
But what we can do is make conscious choices and try and practice it as best as we can.
Yeah.
Whether that's through diet, a siesta, stress levels, when it permits, a siesta,
all of the above.
So
yeah, that's true.
That's all been linked to anti-dementia, anti-cancer, anti-arthritic, anti-inflammation, hair, skin, nails, gut health. The list goes on.
Right.
And like I said, I'll always refer back to that story my grandfather told me. We had to go to the chemist to buy olive oil, right? And my grandma would come home from working her second shift and he'd be slicking his hair with it.
That's crazy.
Right?
Also, the other thing I think that maybe you didn't mention, maybe you did, and I just want to make mention of, I think we've established that the leading the leading cause of death is cardiovascular disease.
Yep.
And one of the things also that we know it can help with is prevention of, that path. But I think, again, we're coming back to food as medicine. So there's so many probably ailments, conditions, illness, disease, whatever, that we don't even realise would benefit. But at the end of the day, you're reducing inflammation, you are actually supporting cellular function, cleaning up, mopping up the mess.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
There's nothing
You're
from
giving
that.
yourself the best chance.
Right, which we have to start to do.
Yep.
A little while ago, I sent you a video that I found on Instagram and I was like, oh my gosh, look at this. Now, of course, you'd seen it, and I probably totally botched this, but it was basically black trade of what wasn't even olive oil. It was seed oils that they were colouring, treating, doing all sorts of things to, and then selling it as olive oil.
Yeah. Yeah, so they cut it down. So
as crazy.
Yeah, story close to home because the olive oil market's gone absolutely gangbusters the last 3 years. Spain dictates the global market because Spain is the number one exporter and producer of olive oil in the world, second being Italy, third being Greece. Baffles me how Greece is third because we've only got 10 million people.
Right, it's tiny, yeah.
In comparison to the Italian and Spanish population, Greece is the third biggest producer, but they don't export it. They keep it for themselves. So there's
not enough left over.
So anyone listening and off the record, if you think your family's sending you the best, they're not. Anyway, so and I can vouch for that.
Yeah.
So I received a phone call about 2 years ago from an Italian guy who'd come down to Greece, down south, because down south is the largest producer of olive oil in Greece. And I'm not biased because I'm Spartan, that's factual, right? And said to me, whatever you buy this year, I'll pay you €5 above the market value. This is a true story.
What?
And I said, mate, I'm not selling my oil. And he said, well, we're prepared to buy. They wanted 20 tonne.
I don't even know how much 20 tonne is, to be honest.
20 tonne is 20,000 litres.
A lot.
Right?
How many trucks
Don't
are full?
quote me on that, but I think I'm right. It's 20 containers. So you know those containers that come on. So it's pretty much almost a whole ship.
Oh, like on a ship, a container. Holy.
Yeah. So big volume. Now, of course, I didn't jury at the time, but 3 months later, a story came out that an Italian father and son had got exposed, and it was a lot more than 20 tonnes. I think it was something, a million tonnes, like something ridiculous, for cutting it down and selling it as extra virgin olive oil, but they had mixed it with either rapeseed oil, sunflower oil.
Seed oil. And then
which has been happening for years.
And possibly happens with some of the things that we're buying at the supermarket? Maybe not like that, but like it's not necessarily...
This is the issue that Australian consumers face, and I see it firsthand because I'm in the industry. We don't know what we're buying unless you physically. How
does anyone know what they're buying? You're not going to know.
And look, I welcome anybody who buys my wild olive oil to go and get it tested. I really do. Yeah. I've always said, just Google olive oil analysis and testing in Australia, and I think it's $150 and you can have it tested because that's the only way you're going to know what you've actually got. Short of that, there's no way. You're just trusting a brand.
Of course you are. You're always trusting a brand.
Just trusting a brand.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like that also, I don't want to go off topic because I really want you to tell this story.
Yep.
But you can see in pricing when you go to wherever you buy oil from.
Yeah.
Something's $7 and something's $21 for the same size, and you're kind of going, and they both say extra virgin cold pressed olive oil, but one looks like someone peed in there, and the other
looks like egg yolk. Yeah, look, it's if you know, you know. It's like anything.
Because sometimes it says light or whatever, and it's like the last press
or whatever it is,
or a blend, which you think should be a blend of oils, but maybe it's a blend of. I don't know. Anyway, please continue.
I mean, I just use that as an example of, I'm not the world's biggest distributor of extra virgin olive oil, but I do have links in southern Greece, and I think that's what got these people's or persons, I guess, attraction to me. And I found that phone call I got taken aback. And then to hear that story coming out of southern Italy and all that type of stuff, Mafia's also made it into a legitimate business.
Yes. Well, that's the one that I was watching. It was like, that's what it was. It was an absolute, total underground, massive operation though, massive. And the bit that got me was that they were colouring it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so it's not just like, because it's in a tin. I guess when you tip it out, you can see what colour it is, but they were colouring it. So not only were they using, the one that I saw it was all like seed oils. It wasn't any olive oil at all.
Sunflower or anything like that.
Yeah, sunflower and whatever. And then they were colouring it. And it was like, I can't remember how much the value was.
Yeah, I think it was something like 100 million euros.
It was something crazy.
Like yeah, ridiculous. Which 100 million euros is like 165,000.
Right. It was a lot of money.
Australian, yeah.
Like it's big business. We're talking about a big business.
Yeah, and look, the olive oil industry is only going to grow worldwide. You
need to put a fence around yours.
Hey?
You need to put a big fence around yours.
I can't. I'm not allowed. But look, we've got the rights to cultivate wild olives, and we've got our own mountains. But we've also done an agreement with the Greek Ancient Agricultural Department that allows us to go and cultivate. You can't go and cultivate wild olives unless you've got permission.
Right.
It's like, because they're an endangered species as a plant. Same with,
And that's why
Same with off-topic Greek mountain tea. Everyone thinks they're drinking tsai tuvunu, which is Greek mountain tea here. You're not drinking Greek mountain tea. You're drinking Karavitis, which is systematically farmed mountain tea. It's still got great benefits, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But it's not that traditional.
And it's not the same.
40 years ago, your grandfather used to drink this tea.
Yes.
You'll be like Popeye.
Right. But it's also not the same. The properties are not as potent. You might still get benefits.
Of course.
But the properties are not as potent. And I think that's the really important.
Yeah, no, of course. And an interesting measurement is, I haven't measured oleocanthal levels in Australia. And in the most respectful way, Australian businesses have only started talking about polyphenols in the last sort of 12 months, right? They don't mention oleocanthal at all because their levels are very low.
Right.
Very low, right? Our oleocanthal level in that little black bottle that's behind you.
Referring to this for everyone that's actually watching us.
Right. Our oleocanthal level reads between 450 and 500 milligrams per kilogram.
So that again, 450
to 500 milligrams per kilogram. Those levels beat or are on par with the best Australian polyphenol content. So within polyphenols, there's about 7 or 8 different markers. Oleocanthal is one of them. Our oleocanthal level, in that bottle beats most of the total polyphenols in Australian olive oil.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to tell you a story about this. So you probably may or may not remember, but you sent me maybe about, I want to say more than 3 years ago. You said 3 years, but I'm sure it was more than that.
When I first started, I think.
You sent me a white one, a black one,
yep.
Maybe a couple. Anyway, took them home, left them on the bench. And
you're supposed to drink it, Nat.
Well, hang on. So here's just so people that know, that isn't watching, I'm holding the black one. And what are we talking about? Like 150 mils or something in here? What's in here?
That's 250 mils.
That's 250 mils. So you had a white one, which was the one that you would cook with or salads or whatever, and then the black one, which is more of a therapeutic dose, right?
Day.
It's like
20 mils a day.
Medicinal, 20 mils a day.
Yep.
Well, I came home and my husband had cooked chicken schnitzels and he had tipped the entire black bottle.
He's Greek, so good on him. He doesn't
into the pan. And I said to him, where's that black olive oil gone? And he's like, which one? The one I cooked the schnitzels with? And I'm like, you didn't. I said, do you know?
How did it taste?
I mean, they were the best freaking schnitzels you're ever going to have. I don't think the kids probably thought that they were probably accusing Chris of using pepper. but I thought it was a hilarious story because I was like, okay, so in future we use the white one. But let's talk about cooking with olive oil. Because a lot of people have been told that's a bad idea.
It is still the best oil to cook with. It does not oxidize as much as other oils and as much as the myths and,
are those myths because maybe it's not true olive oil or because there's a business as well?
I think it's two-part. One is because when you don't have a good quality oil, obviously, or it's mixed or whatever it is, the smoke point will alter and differ 100%. But that's just not olive oil. That's oil in general.
Right.
The other part of it is, I haven't done the numbers and haven't looked at it, but I reckon if we looked at what sells more in supermarkets, I think it would be sunflower, canola, vegetable oil over olive oil because of the price. And I think because of the general cuisine in Australia. If that's the case, then of course, like Big Pharma, big supermarkets, they're going to want you to buy it and all these myths are going to come out.
Right.
And that's fine. But you speak to or talk to or listen to the best scientists in the world, they will tell you to cook with olive oil. I mean, here's the thing. You go to Greece or Italy or what are they cooking with?
Yeah.
What do you think they do with all that oil that they keep? Because like I said before, early harvest, for example, I hadn't heard of early harvest until that conversation in Greece. Actually, he told me about the wild olive oil first, and then 3 months later I said, have you got a good cooking? He goes, yeah. He goes, we've got this white bottle, it's called early harvest. And I said, well, what have I been getting all these years from my tree? He goes, I know, we've been sending you like the second press, the olive oil, the extra virgin olive oil from my own trees.
That's funny.
So we cultivate this in June, July. Early harvest is in September, October. And then extra virgin is November, December, right? That in between, early harvest, which is cultivated from an unripe olive, green, to give you that superior taste and European Union health claim, which we have, which says you've got a certain reading, excuse me, of polyphenols. We can sell that in chemists in Europe.
Wow.
We can't in Australia.
Well, we won't go there.
Yeah, we won't go there. We can't in Australia. Olive leaf extract can be sold.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So what's the difference
olive oil
then?
is only classified as a food in Australia.
What about olive leaf extract and then something like this? What's the difference?
I'll give you a comparison off the topic. So it's on the topic, but the highest reading of polyphenol content out of an olive leaf extract I've found in Australia in the chemists was about 3,000 milligrams per kilogram.
Okay.
We did an analysis just for an exercise on wild olive leaf extract, so not cultivated, the same trees we get the oil from. The polyphenol content was 28,000 milligrams per kilogram.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Difficult to drink.
And it is difficult to drink.
Difficult to drink because it's coming straight from the leaf.
Yes.
Imagine just picking up an olive. Have you ever picked up an olive from a tree and eaten it?
Yeah, I've got a tree in my yard.
Do you just eat bitter olives?
No,
You brush your teeth like 3 days and it's still there?
Yeah, no, I don't do that.
So you can't.
I harvest it myself. So the tree only ever gives me 1 jar of olives.
How old's the tree?
Not very old.
Okay.
But I grew it from like it was a bomboniere at a wedding.
Yep.
And I've grown it into a tree, like
But hats off to you because I know 60-year-old Greek men or Italian men that can't produce an olive.
Well, so it's produced only 1 year. It was a jar full, and I just marinated them in salt. That's the only way I know how to actually. I just put salt and I shook it and I put it in the cupboard and I left it there for ages and then I took it out. It was delicious.
Well, what I'm going to do just for everyone, because now it's almost harvesting time in Australia. So in about 4 weeks, you start getting olives in Australia. I want to do a how to make Greek olives, like a video, a reel.
Yes.
And it'll be my mum's way and my father-in-law's way. My father-in-law's from Cyprus. He's Turkish Cypriot. So they love olives. There's no olives on the table. We don't sit down. So how to do it, because I get that question all the time. How do I make these olives and make them taste like that? It's not that easy. It's a bit of an art.
why
and it takes about 3 weeks to make.
Yeah, I know the salt works every time, so that's why I just did it with the salt because I've done that before. But to actually preserve them, I've never done that before.
Add some vinegar,
but also,
all that type of stuff.
1 jar. I was experimenting my first time around. Anyway, then I got so excited. My tree's big now, right?
Yep.
This year, it was like had heaps of baby tiny olives on it. I was like, oh, it's going to be amazing. And then we had a day of or 2 days of storms and it wiped them all out.
Off. Yeah.
And I also have, just because, I am who I am, I have lemon trees and I have limes. I have all sorts of things out the back.
And this is no disrespect to you, but you also need to know at that point what to do and how to look after it.
Right. Yeah. Well, also I think
it
doesn't, sometimes the weather does claim things, which actually is really disappointing when you can see your trees fruiting in the yard. But anyway, so we can cook with olive oil.
Yep.
And then we can also take olive oil as as a
medicine.
I like to use the word serve because people when you use the word dose, they start to think they're taking, even though it's medicinal, it's still food at the end of the day.
Yeah, look,
what sort of amount of, say, the black bottle we're talking about, did you say 20 mils?
20
like
mils.
A shot glass?
No, a shot glass is a bit extra.
Like a small,
tablespoon a day. Tablespoon a day is the recommended dosage. So there's a lot of, and this isn't from me. This is
the shot glass might be like you might poo your pants. Okay, sorry, rewind.
Yeah, a bit too much. Doctors and professors that are now in the industry are now saying that 3 tablespoons of a high medicinal olive oil is the equivalent to 200 milligrams of ibuprofen. Works similar, right?
That's amazing.
Now, I don't take ibuprofen, so I can't say that I've tested one out or the other. All I can vouch for is that we have provided, I can say this because it's factual, we have provided straight oleocanthal, so not polyphenol. So they extract the oleocanthal out of the olive oil, out of the polyphenols, which is a very costly process. And injected it straight in prostates.
Right.
So tumours. And over a 12-month period, the tumour has decreased 18%.
Wow.
Right? So without any other treatment. So this person just wanted to be, I don't want to go into names and professors.
No, fair enough, yeah.
But this person just wanted to be treated with wild olive oil. And
that's amazing.
It hasn't had an adverse effect. It's had a benefit. Now, I'm not saying that, hey, everyone that's got an issue like that, stop doing what you're doing. It needs to be more about prevention than being reactive and then starting Western medicine. You've got to remember, Western medicine was made for when you need it.
For when you're sick. We're talking about setting yourself up to live to your 93 or beyond like your
grandfather, right?
Yeah.
Like my papa. I think it was 91 or 93.
It's still old, 91, 93. It's a good innings.
But look, I'm not out to say that, but what I'm out to say is that, and then when I started this, because no one understood it, it was the best comparison I could make was Manuka honey. Well, there's honey and there's Manuka honey and there's polyphenols in Manuka honey. And then they grade it with certain numbers. Manuka honey doesn't taste like honey.
No.
Of course it doesn't, because that doesn't have the sugar and all the crap in it that, normal honey that's for, high turnover, tons and tons of it at a cheaper price. There's Manuka honey selling out there for like $400 a jar.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? For me, 100%. I'm not saying everyone can go out and buy that and afford it. I say this to my wife all the time. How much are you spending on other stuff that doesn't help you? And it's health products as well. Like she'll just go and order online because someone said, oh, this is fantastic for you. Then she'll get the packaging.
Well, if Nat
she received one the other day. She received one the other day and said, warning, because this is being cultivated in a certain way, it might have lead in it and it could cause cancer. From America. I'm like, how much did you pay for this? She goes, $100.
Oh my gosh. We need to do our research, but at the same time, we've got people that are doing it for us because we can't necessarily research to the nth degree like you have the ability to do with your products.
Yeah.
So I think that, at the end of the day, we need to use a bit of common sense as well.
100%.
Food is medicine.
Yep.
You could use olive oil for more than just food. You can put it on your body. You can put it in your hair.
Yeah. Well,
you can do lots of, it's much more. It's very versatile.
Yeah, and that's what it was. That was, if you go back to the ancient times, that was the olive tree. The story about the olive tree, the myth about the olive tree is the ancient Athenians had 2 options: Poseidon, water, or Athena, who the capital city was obviously named after. The olive tree. And the ancient Athenians picked the olive tree because of the benefits. And also Greece was surrounded by water. So it's this thing for the body that's universal. We recommend 20 mils a day to get all those therapeutic benefits. If it is too overbearing or powerful, I say squeeze a few drops of fresh lemon in it, maybe some black pepper, and people have come back to me and said, well, that tastes amazing. And that's something else that has been, spoken about for centuries, the fresh lemon and liver and olive oil and hot water and all that type of stuff. So your husband didn't do the wrong thing by cooking with it. He didn't do.
No, he didn't do the wrong thing. I was just actually really looking forward. This is ages ago. This is like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah,
now he knows.
Yeah.
I was more so looking forward to actually experimenting, and I never got to do that with that last batch.
Well, I'll give you a funny story that topped. I was in Bronte in Sydney with one of my good customers, Sula's up there. She owns Broth Bar and Lava.
Yes, I was watching her put the water inside the tin the other day. Yes.
So I had to win Sula over, hard conversation,
Really?
and she'll vouch for this.
That's cute.
She flat out said to me, well, why would I stock your product when I'm so happy with Grampians? I said, can I send you some stuff? She goes, yeah, okay, but chase me, I'm busy. Yeah? And I love Sula. Sula's are great. So I sent her the stuff and she was just blown away. Being Greek Cypriot, blown away, and she hasn't looked back. So we were doing a tasting in Bronte. It's at one of the most affluent areas of Australia.
Yeah.
And a lady came up to me, tapped me on the shoulder, and she goes, you're the olive oil man? I said, yeah. She goes, my dog loves your olive oil. I said, what? She goes, yeah, his coat's looking better than ever.
Wow,
I just sprinkle a little bit on top of his.
Lucky
now,
puppy.
Who am I to?
No.
That might have been her son, or
yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's all based on, for me, it's all based on your affordability.
Yeah.
Based on that, we say drink 20 mils a day. But if you want to bathe in it and you can afford to,
all right, knock
it's
yourself
only
out.
it's only going to benefit you.
And the other thing I will say to that, I know with spending time with lots of people, you're talking about a general amount, and some people need a little bit more and some people need a little
100%.
bit less. But if you were to start to take 20 mils a day and then feel not your best, don't not take it. Just reduce the amount that you're taking, because it might just be too much for you. It's very interesting how we're very quick to go, I took this and this happened. It's like, it's probably just a little bit much for your body. You don't maybe need as much.
Yeah, and look, I think the first things, especially females see, is if they're not regulating their bowel movements, they start to see debloating, regulation of the bowel. Then the next step, about 2 weeks later, which is the feedback I've always gotten, is hair, skin and nails.
Yeah.
That they get this glow about them, their hair feels fuller, thicker. And everything you do, doesn't matter what it is, whether it's my product or anything else, you got to try it, you got to stick to it.
And you got to be consistent.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
So the ones that do, they see that. And then it just becomes part of their daily routine. We've had people send in cholesterol levels, bad LDL lipids, which is something that good olive oil reduces. It doesn't reduce good cholesterol. It reduces bad LDL cholesterol, right? So I had a lady send in her results and her markers had dropped by like 30%.
Amazing.
And I asked her, are you doing anything else? She said no. Now, because of it's a food in Australia, I can't go out and say, well, look at this, guys, look what we've achieved. But I don't think I want to or need to anyway.
I don't think so either. One final thing I will say also for anyone listening, one of the things I've noticed with patients is definitely changes with the cycle. So when you get a regular bowel and you're reducing inflammation, you're maximising cellular health, we also see changes, with elimination, so moving your bowel and detoxifying your liver, so you see tremendous changes to your cycle.
Yeah.
So that a lot of reports, and I've seen reports around period pain and endometriosis being something that people have seen some changes with as well. So that's why you've got to be consistent, because if you do it for 2 weeks, it's probably not going to give you the benefits for when your menstrual cycle starts again for you to actually know. So I would always say to patients, do something for at least 4 weeks, see what happens.
Yeah.
And then you can start to, by that time, it's part of a routine or a regime anyway.
100%. And look, if anyone's ever got any questions, reach out to either me at my email or the company's email. That's me that responds. The Instagram, any sort of health questions, I respond, which a lot of businesses don't have that. I'm very hands-on when it comes to that, because I want to make sure there's that service above and beyond just, hey, this is olive oil.
Right.
That's not what we're about.
In a cute bottle.
We often get fantastic. I will make one disclaimer that the bottle's actually produced in Rome.
Wow.
Yeah.
You went across the border.
I don't. The bottle. Not
the bottle.
It's baked in Rome, but we actually do the rest in Greece. But
amazing.
That's something that people ask me all the time.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for
We've got a
me.
few things in the pipeline, so I'd encourage people to keep on watching. I'm going to do some road testing.
Yep, okay.
Yeah?
Okay, perfect.
Bit of road testing and sort of see where that takes us. And, of course, I'm always a fan of anything that's food as medicine.
Yeah.
So this
Thanks
is so
for having
exciting.
me. I really appreciate it, and I'm interested to see what you got cooking.
Yeah.